Yeah, absolutely. Can you hear me all right? Great. Well, welcome everyone to my home. I'm here in Denver. I live just north of the city, and I'm in an older home, which we love. It's cozy, but we don't have induction, at least not yet. But you can see I'm working on a good old-fashioned electric smooth top glass range. But I do have an induction burner, a portable one that I brought with me, so that I can talk about what induction is, how it works, some of the common questions. Do I need new pans? How much does it cost? Is it easy to install? These are all great questions. They're questions that I hear every day. Hold on, I'm sorry. This guy, cats are curious. I hear every day working in the appliance industry and as a chef. Now, let me tell you a little bit about myself and my experience with induction and working as a chef. I've been cooking for over 30 years, and the majority of that time I've worked on gas appliances, which I would say the majority of restaurants, particularly here in the United States, are gas. A big gas main comes in. Off of that comes the major appliances of the professional kitchen: deep fryers, ranges, grills, and it's a lot of heat. We have huge hoods with fire suppression systems, makeup air, and it's the whole system. So it's very different than a home where we have one range, usually between 30 and 48 inches, depending on the size of your house and your kitchen. And so the demands of a home kitchen are very different. So about 6 years ago, in fact 6 years tomorrow, I started with Appliance Factory Fine Lines as their chef and working with home appliances. So I feel that gives a unique perspective how a home appliance is different than a professional appliance in a restaurant, let's say, or a food service industry. And what I've discovered is that the demands for the home cook are very different. They really are. Most of us have either 4 or 5 burners on a 30-inch range. If you have more than that, then consider yourself lucky. It's wonderful to have these beautiful appliances in our home. And they really are the center of not only the kitchen, but oftentimes it showcases the entire home. And what we're seeing in the industry is the appliance industry, the home appliance industry, is getting ahead of the demand for induction appliances at all price points. We're seeing things from good old-fashioned, what we call a 30-inch freestanding range, all the way up to a 16-inch grand cooking suites being induction. All the manufacturers out there either have them for sale or prototypes, some of which I've been able to see, and they're really fantastic, great technology coming out. So that being said, what is induction? How does it work? I am not a scientist, I'm a cook, so I'm going to do my best to describe this as simply as possible, and if someone here has a better explanation, I'd love to hear it. So this is what I tell people. An induction stove, the way it works is that it creates an energy field, and that energy field actually uses the pan as the heat source. So it excites the molecules in the cookware. The metal creates friction at a microscopic level, which creates heat, and then that heat is transferred into the food. So part of the reason why induction is so efficient is we're cutting out the middleman. If you turn on a gas stove, you heat the gas heats the air in the cooktop, or the pan rather, that's sitting on the cooktop. That pan then transfers the heat to the food. Similar with electric, if I put a pan on here and I turned it on, the glass would get hot, that hot glass would then heat the pan, and then the food would get hot. Induction cuts out that middle step. The glass on an induction cooktop doesn't create its own heat. The heat is created in the cookware. The pan gets hot and it transfers that heat back into the pan, or back into the stovetop surface, but it is indeed not creating its own heat. So we have much more efficiency because we're skipping a step. We cut out the middleman. It works faster, so because we're cooking faster, we're picking up some efficiencies there. And then most importantly, when it comes to working with induction versus gas, is that we don't have an open flame in our house. And an open flame in our house, of course, there are some, I guess, new studies out there that are talking about the dangers of that. So when you talk about a gas stove, it is the one appliance in our home gas appliance in our home rather, that we get to control. You know, we have gas furnaces, we have gas hot water heaters. Well, those are on auto, they just function until they don't, and that's when they become a problem where we think about them. And those are plumbed with exhaust to the outside. So those work very well because they're kind of systems in place, but we don't really control those. A gas stove, it's a knob, we get to turn it, and we get to see the flame in our kitchen. So I think that's why gas is such a popular thing in people's homes. I get it, you know, I mean, you pick up the pan and you go, oh, that's on medium, look at me, I'm cooking. When you're working with a flat top electric stove or a coil top electric stove, those leave a lot to be desired when it comes to control, because what ends up happening is they get hot, they take forever to get hot, your food starts to burn, you turn it down, and they take forever to come down in temperature, and we don't have the same control as we would if we had a gas range. Well, induction fixes that, because induction is not creating its own heat, it is only heating the pan. When we turn induction off, it cuts the heat instantly to the pan, just like we see when we're working with a gas stove. And there is a little bit of residual heat, just like a gas stove. Those gas grates heat up, the pan is sitting on there, you turn off the gas, and of course you're going to have residual heat on the grate, which then transfers in the pan, but off is off. You don't have to worry about coming back and checking your food if it's going to continue to cook. And induction functions like that very much so. So that being said, I'm going to talk a little bit about cooking, and then we'll keep talking about induction cooking. And if you've got questions, I'd love to hear them. You can put them in the chat so we can read them off to me, one of the facilitators. That'd be great. So I'm making a stir fry here. Some of you have the recipes. You might be cooking along with me. And I got back from the grocery store, very careless. I did not grab a butternut or a spaghetti squash. I grabbed the butternut squash, and then I went go back to the store, and they were out. So I'm going to do something a little different. I'm going to do some fried rice. I've got some rice that I made that's nice and dry. What do I got here? Let's go over our mise en place. I've got mushrooms. We've got some sugar snap peas. I have some cilantro. And then what I made beforehand is GGS, so this is ginger, garlic, and scallion. And we'll talk a little bit more about these ingredients. Ginger, garlic, scallion, or green onion. But also I have in this bowl some shallots, some mint. I got some chopped cilantro over there. I got some red peppers. These are all vegetables I enjoy cooking with. I got soy sauce, I got some sriracha, I got some sesame oil over here. Pro tip, keep your sesame oil in the refrigerator. It spoils actually pretty quickly. And you can tell if sesame oil or any of your oils are spoiled if when you smell them, they smell like a cardboard box. It's spoiled. Go ahead and throw it out and replace it. It's not as pleasant to eat. Oils spoil very quickly, quicker than you might think. Buy smaller amounts if that's happening to you. I have a little sugar in a squeeze bottle in case I want to add some sweetness. And so we're just going to make a very simple stir fry. And what kind of pans can we use? Well, that's a great question. You can see I've got a flat bottom or a round bottom wok here, and that will work. It's steel. Anything magnetic is going to work great for induction. So for those of you that like stir fry, I don't want to get rid of my wok. Well, you don't have to. A good high quality thin metal wok will work great. That means your steel crepe pans, your French style pans are going to work. Teflon pan will work provided it's got a magnetic base. This is commercial style cookware, big thick metal base at the bottom. If this were like a cast aluminum egg pan, it would not work. So I find when I'm working with somebody who's considering induction, I always tell them, you get to get new pans. Come on, it's not that you have to, you get new pans. Cast iron, this is a common question. Will my grandma's cast iron pan, it's been in the family for generations, will it work? Absolutely. If it's magnetic, it will work. So one side note about cast iron, it does get very hot very quickly. So you have to meter the heat on these. A lot of the induction stoves on the market today, if they get too hot, they'll turn themselves off until everything cools off, and then they reset themselves. They're pretty smart. So that prevents the glass from cracking. The glass is a ceramic style glass that is very heat resistant, extremely durable, easy to clean. And I was actually just talking to somebody about this today, that when you clean a gas stove, you got to take all the racks off, you got to store them somewhere, you got to wipe the whole thing down, and then it leaves streaks, so then you got to wipe those streaks down. It's a lot of work with a induction stove. When I'm done cooking, before and after I'm cooking, I just wipe it down. Before cooking, yeah, I find that if I wipe my stove down at home, whether it's my flat top or my induction, it works for both of those kinds of stoves. You remove any environmental dirt that is settling, and that'll help keep your stove top nice and clean. So, all right, I'm going to start preheating my induction here. This particular unit, this is a Paragon unit by GE, and it's got a lot of really cool features. I'm really happy with this. I've had this for years now. It goes with me when I do events and demos and cooking classes, and it's here right now. And I find that it's nearly as powerful as a home unit. So a home unit, interestingly enough, will have nearly double the BTUs, maximum BTUs, as the gas range. So most gas stoves, high-end gas stoves, top out between 22,000 BTU, and a lot of these induction stoves go up to 40,000 BTU. 38, 40 is not uncommon. So you get a lot more power. And because it's more powerful, things cook faster, and because they cook faster, we pick up some efficiency. All right, if you're, oh, good, I want to hear them. Right now I'm on number 5, so this goes up to 10, and I'm on number 5. Medium heat, yeah, absolutely. Medium heat's going to do the trick. We are going to crank this up at some point, But right now I'm going to preheat my pan on a medium heat. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Shopping for induction cooktop is pretty similar to shopping for any cooktop or any range. Typically, you're going to have 4 burners of 4 different sizes with 4 different features. So some will have a double ring. And I personally don't think it's that important to find a burner that's as big as your pot. So let's pretend this is my heck pan here at home. Let's pretend this is the size of the burner. If you put a pan this big on top, the heat is going to transfer. Yes, you might need to move your pan around a little bit, but the heat will transfer. So as far as how the sizes of the burners, I would say if you find a brand that you like at a price point that you like, trust that the engineers that have engineered and designed that that cooktop have optimized it to work with all sizes of cookware. They're actually not designed to work with round bottom woks, which is why I like to demonstrate this. Mine's heating up quite nicely here. But I find that with all the major brands that I've worked with in the past, which would be, you know the names, GE, Frigidaire, LG, Samsung, and then the luxury brands, Genair, Decor, Thermador, Signature Kitchen Suites, you know all these names. Any size pan, including large 12-inch saute pans, heat up just fine on these, and they cook very accurately. And then the other question was, what features to look for, and there was one other question I think I glossed over. Okay. Gotcha. Actually, I did want to touch on that. When you're shopping for induction, amperage is highly important. So oftentimes you'll have a 40 amp 220 line running to your kitchen, and you might need a 50 amp or greater. So it's not a bad idea to look in your fuse panel and see how many amps you have running to your kitchen, or consult an electrician before you make the purchase. I have read some people regretting buying a cooktop because they end up having to put thousands of dollars into the infrastructure to run the wires or what have you to their kitchen. You're ideally replacing, putting induction where it's easy to install. It can be tricky, particularly if you have trouble running the utility. A lot of the manufacturers are producing induction ranges that will run on a standard amount of amp, either 30 or 40 amps on a 220 line. They might have slightly less power, but they're still far more powerful than your standard electric cooker. In this home, I'm lucky. I have both gas line and electric line running to my kitchen, and a lot of older homes. This is a 1958 home. A lot of these older homes have that. Okay, I'm going to talk about safety features as well, so don't let me forget that. We're going to do a little knife skills if you're cooking along. I am not going to do the spaghetti squash, but if you have the spaghetti squash, let's talk about that real quick. I want you to cut the spaghetti squash in half lengthwise. There's some seeds in the middle that you can scrape out, and that I actually cook in the microwave until it's soft. So I usually do 2.5, 3 minutes, and I might run it 2 or 3 sessions, and then I just get in there and fork that out. I recommended that you have that cooked beforehand, and from there I just leave it warm in the microwave, and it's wonderful. So it was absent-minded of me to grab the wrong vegetable, and I'm sorry I don't have that, but I'm going to do some, we have a bonus recipe, then we'll do some fried rice. Okay, I'm holding my knife with the pinch grip, right, so thumb on one side and my index finger on the other, middle finger sliding against the back of the knife. And it's a forward rocking motion, so I pick up, pull, and then forward glide. That forward gliding is what actually does the cutting. Okay. And I don't wash my mushrooms in water. What I do is brush them off with a paper towel. I find that when you wash mushrooms in water, they absorb so much moisture, just enough moisture, that they never really brown, right? I've had people challenge me with that, and I get it. Like, you know, I know they grow these in basically dirt, but they pasteurize the dirt, and so I went to a mushroom farm once, and the first mushroom farm, he said, "This is the cleanest dirt you'll ever find," and he took a big glass of their fertilizer, which is organic, and he drank it. You know, if you're not picking up on what I'm putting down here, that fertilizer is, well, it's cotton wool. Okay, I've got some snow peas here, and what I do is I detassel them, so I just pull the tassels off of them, and I actually did that earlier. Here's my mushrooms, here's my sugar snap peas, rather, snow peas and sugar snap peas. You want to detassel those. Those tassels, they pull like a little piece of dental floss off with them, and they're really unpleasant. I'm still preheating my wok here, and you'll note that there's no oil in this. It's important that you preheat your pan with nothing in it, because once you put oil in it, now you're on the clock. Now it could start to smoke and burn, so I like to keep my wok or saute pan, or even my cast iron pan, I heat it with no oil. Okay, so I got ginger, garlic, scallion. Now I went ahead and I pureed those three together to make some GGS, but let me show you if you wanted to make that by hand. I don't crush my garlic, mainly because I find that you end up with this puddle. It breaks all the cell walls, you get this juice, and that juice, when it hits hot oil, burns instantly. So I prefer to just peel my garlic gently. I either just give it a light tap with the side of my knife, and or twist the skin off. And I love this because then I smell the garlic everywhere I go for 2 days. And then people say, "Ooh, do you smell the garlic?" I say, "Yeah, aren't I lucky?" If you're using that stuff in the jar, just throw it out. Just liberate yourself from it. Just throw it out. You can do it. That's not real garlic. And I'd like to just slice it nice and thin. I'm holding that root end, that fuzzy end we're going to hold out, throw out anyways, that woody end rather. And I just kind of chop that. I'm going to mince this with some ginger. Did you know that the skin is edible? So I stopped peeling my ginger years ago. Yep, it's paper thin, so I don't peel that anymore. I got a couple scallions here. These are the root ends, the greens. The greens are better for sautéing, and the whites are better for garnish. But I find they taste the same, so I feel like they're really interchangeable. Yeah. And then I made GGS before, ginger garlic scallions. I just put it in a food processor. I don't love processing all my vegetables, but for some reason it works really well with GGS. And I'm gonna just hold my knife caveman. Okay. So as I'm mincing this, I wanted to talk about some of the safety features that come with induction. So when you pick your pan up off of an induction stove, most of these take about between 20 and 30 seconds, and they time out. They actually turn themselves off. So that's kind of a nuisance if you're the kind of cook who likes to take a pan off the stove or walk around the kitchen and get ingredients, because then you have to turn it back on and reset it. But it is a tremendous safety feature, because did you accidentally leave the stove on? No, because you took all the pans off of it. You can't leave it on. And then secondly, they do eventually time out. So what that means is that they don't have an engineered feature that says, hey, after 25 minutes you turn off. That would be problematic. But if you leave your stove on overnight with a pan on it, let's say that happened accidentally, the glass would eventually get so hot that it would turn itself off to protect itself. Like I mentioned earlier, there's all of these have a resistor in there. I don't know, I'm not an electric engineer, but some sort of resistance in there that shuts itself off, and then when it cools off, it turns itself back on. So you cannot accidentally leave the stove on. If you've ever done that, I did once. I left my stove on low, walked out of the house for 3 days, I came back on vacation. My house was 120 degrees. It was bad. I was very, very glad that my stove didn't catch on fire. If I had induction, it wouldn't have happened. Okay, and then last thing we're gonna cut, everyone, is a pepper. There's a lot of ways to cut a pepper. This is my favorite. I'm gonna cut off bottom and top. Okay, and we're not gonna throw these out. That's part of the pepper. That's good stuff. We're gonna use that. I'm gonna cut in between the spokes, and then I'm gonna do what's called a fillet cut. So I just take one step backwards. I've got my thumb on top of my knife, and I just kind of roll and scooch at the same time here. Heck yeah, I love that. That's fun. Okay, that goes into the compost pile. And then I can slice all this. I don't want that much pepper, so I'm just going to do a little less. I'm just going to do this one panel. And pro tip, when you're cutting pepper, skin side down, flesh side up, and your knife will glide right through. You can see I'm using a large chef's knife. I like a 10-inch chef's knife. A large chef's knife is actually safer than a small knife because you have more surface area to work with. The belly of the knife is taller, so your fingers end up being a little bit farther away from business end. You're less likely to cut yourself. Okay, I got my mushrooms, my peppers. I'm going to combine these with why not. Okay. Done. Yeah, great. Perfect. I was going to get there, so I'm so glad someone answered the question. The typical cost with an induction stove, we add about 20% to a particular, any different kind of range or cooktop. So a range is what I have behind me. It's 30 inches wide. This is a standard range. With a back, they call this a freestanding range. If this were I hate to quote examples because I'm not good on math on camera, but you can expect to spend about 20% more, and we have seen some of these come in sub $1,000. They're relatively basic. They might have 4 burners as opposed to 5. They might not have a convection oven and a smaller oven cavity, but you can get into induction relatively affordable. What is more expensive is a cooktop, and a cooktop is something that drops into a countertop, either on an island or a large piece of granite or whatever countertop material you have. And those come in 2 different sizes, 30 and 36. 36 is the largest you can get right now. A 30-inch will have 4 burners, and a 36-inch cooktop will have 5 burners. We haven't seen anything more than 5 burners right now. And those are relatively expensive. I've seen them as much as $5,000. But those are ones that have a lot of features. Wi-Fi capability, sous vide capability. Those would be something that you put in a luxury kitchen. So it runs the gamut, $1,000 to $5,000. I don't know. Somebody asked me earlier if we're going to see energy saving rebates and things like that. There's nothing that I could find out there in the universe right now that has any rebates, but maybe my friends at City County of Denver have some information on that for us to put you guys on the spot. Okay, Mac, do you have anything you'd like to add? Yeah, okay, that's fair. And you pick up a lot of efficiency because remember, we cut out the middleman and we're cutting out the cooking time. You know, yeah, I'm preheating my pan here, but I'm also illustrating that you can use it like a regular stove. You know. Okay, I'm gonna make my stir fry, and then I'm gonna make some fried rice. If you're joining me with that, great. If you don't have fried rice and you're using the spaghetti squash, that's really just a matter of keeping it warm and serving the stir fry over that. So what do I have here? I have some of my favorite ingredients. I've got some sesame oil. We talked about that already. Some sriracha. It's back, people. Woohoo! I've got soy sauce. I've got some sugar. Yeah, I put my sugar in a squeeze bottle. That way I can eye out small amounts. I don't measure as a rule. I also have some ball if you want it fiery hot and you want to melt your face off. Do a combination of some ball and sriracha if you're being brave. I'm not that brave, but I do have it here. I have a little bit of rice vinegar if I want it to be a little bit tangier. So So let's get to work here. I'm going to make the sauce right in the pan. I'm going to eye things out. I think I provided measurements, but I would never use those. And then we'll do some very basic stir fry as well. I'm just going to heat that up and get a little color in there as well. Why I'm getting my pan hot now, I'm on number 8, and I want to get this literally smoking hot. I wanted to talk about a little pro tip, a little hack, a little kitchen hack I've got for everybody. And that is this. I've got my ginger, I've got some extra ginger here. I don't know if you can hear that, it's frozen like a rock. So I freeze my ginger, skin and all, and I can make it snow ginger. I don't know if you can see that in the camera, but it's snowing ginger right into, I can do it right into the wok, right into the recipe. So that's a fun way to preserve ginger. Ooh, it smells aromatic and delicious. And just one more way you can kind of keep that from going bad, because these ingredients that we love, a lot of times you might only have it for 1 or 2 recipes, so don't let it go bad. Store it in your freezer. Oh, and I put it next to my peppermint patties in the freezer, so that way when I cook with ginger, I get delicious chocolate too. Okay, I am really getting hot now. Yep. Okay. Yeah, yeah. I actually have an example of that. So a standard induction stove. I'm going to turn my cooktop down a little bit here, everyone. I'm going to turn it off for now because the pan's going to stay hot. A standard induction stove will boil a quart of water in 90 seconds. A standard gas stove here in Denver takes closer to 10 minutes to boil that same water. So we could say that it's 8 point something times faster. I don't know. Again, I don't do math on camera, but it's considerably faster. And what that means for you in real life, if you're making macaroni and cheese, which is the example we like to cite in the appliance industry, and you come home, you put your water on, and it's going to take a big pot of water might take 12 to 15 minutes to boil, particularly up here in Denver. You could have that same pot of water boiling in literally half the time, if not faster. You can have the entire recipe. You can have an entire recipe made in the time that your water boils, and then things cook faster. Pastas cook faster. Potatoes are going to cook faster because they can maintain a temperature. It's going to bring that water to a boil and keep it there no matter what. If you've been cooking something and you add all your ingredients and the water comes down in temperature, then fights to come back up, and your noodles start to get starchy and sticky. Whatever you're cooking doesn't really cook great because it doesn't come up to a boil again. An induction stove will fight through that and just come right back up. So you pick up a lot of time, and not only like cooking time, but just lifetime. Okay, I can get the cooking done and over with, and I can get back to spending time with my family sooner. So that's one of the benefits, lifestyle benefits of cooking with more power. There's a downside, and we're going to talk about this really quick before we make our stir fry, and that is when people first get induction. And this happened to me personally. I can attest to this. Things happen so much faster. You have to rewire your brain slightly. So, okay, I'm going to pour my cooking my pork chops, and I'm going to put my mushrooms and my white wine, and I'm going to put my lid on, and I'm going to go take the laundry out of the washer, put it in the dryer. And you come back to induction, and it might be burned because you expect it to take 15 minutes, and it might only take 5 or 6 minutes. So you have to steer the temperature a little bit more than you might be used to at first. But after you do it once or twice, you make the mistake of not really understanding just how powerful this is. You get over it quickly. And I would say a medium 5 on a high quality induction range is like a 10 on a high quality gas range. So induction then goes from 5 to 10. So that's where it's double the power. The double of the power isn't at the high end. Double the power happens right in the middle. It's double the power of 5. And then, from there, you go really high power. So you can do things like stir fry or boil water instantly. Okay, back to cooking, everyone. That was a great question. I appreciate all these questions. Thank you all. Okay. And I'm not really worried about this taking too long to preheat. We've got good heat in the wok. This is a commercial style wok. I've had this for many years. It's well seasoned. And I'm waiting for it to come up to temperature so that it starts to smoke slightly. The wok hay, the breath of the wok. And there we go. This one takes a little bit longer. Like I said, this particular unit, I've had it for many years. I think the fan's starting to get a little tired because it used to be when I got it new, man. Ooh. Okay, there we go. Okay, smoking. I'm going to add some sesame oil. My sesame oil is smoking. I'm going to start with my vegetables. I'm just doing vegetable stir fry today. You're adding a protein. Hopefully you have that cooked already. It's easier to add that after it's cooked. It's actually a very traditional way of cooking stir fry. You do your protein first, get the protein out. Then you do your vegetables in the same pan, and then you make the sauce right in the pan. I actually worked at a Chinese restaurant. As a young man in Cleveland, which is my home. I was the front of the house guy. They wouldn't let me cook. They didn't want me to have the secrets of the recipe. It was very good food, so I don't blame them. All right, great. And of course, wok cooking is fun because you get to shake and flip. It smells amazing. I'm going to get some of our GGS in there. I like to add, and this is true anytime I'm cooking, I like to add my garlic second or third to a recipe so I guarantee it doesn't burn. Yeah. And I want this to be crispy and bright. I don't want to cook things until they're too soft. I just want to have the flavor and heat injected into it. And I like to do a stir fry on induction because that's one thing that I get more than anything. I think people are passionate about certain kinds of cooking, wok cooking, grilling, for example, smoking, outdoors, and so it's, well, if something changes, am I going to be able to do what I love to do? And the answer is yes, you can. The food's going to taste the same, regardless of the fuel source, for wok cooking or a lot of indoor style cooking when you're working at home. Okay, we're generating less heat as well because, of course, the heat's only going into the pan, so you need less ventilation. We'll talk about that a little bit more here in a moment. I'm going to add some sriracha. How much? I don't know. That felt like about a tablespoon. Add some of my soy sauce. Check it out. I am going to add a little of my rice vinegar and sugar. Anytime you cook sugar and vinegar together, I don't know if this is the recipe, but I'm adding it. Sugar and vinegar together, you're making what's known as a gastric. And it gives it this nice kind of sweet and sour flavor. So, okay. Oh yeah. Beautiful. I'm going to set this off inside. Let that sit briefly. You know what? I do want to let it cook down a little bit. This recipe doesn't call for a cornstarch slurry. It's not that kind of recipe where it really has like a wet sauce. This is really more of a glaze style. Yeah. Oh, that's a great question. So a resistance range, I like that term, by the way, resistance range. I'm preheating my, I'm just going to use a pan for this fried rice. If anybody's joining me, I'm going to use my nonstick pan just because. So resistant range, they actually get hotter than a gas stove. Their maximum BTUs are much hotter. And the reason for that is you have more surface area, so when you set a pan down on that glass, you're really getting all of the pan touching all of the glass, and the whole thing heats up. So it gets tremendously hot. But I mentioned earlier how it takes so long to heat up, and then once it gets hot, it takes so long to cool down. If you have a coil top, same thing. Coil tops get tremendously hot, but they take so much time for the temperature change to fluctuate from, you know, cold up to hot, and then from hot back to cold. When you turn it off, you're still cooking. So where induction really the biggest advantage I would say as a professional chef is that it acts like gas. That when you turn it off, it's off. You have no more heat being generated and going into the pan. And I would say more than anything, it gives a cook who craves control and accuracy exactly what they're looking for. A lot of the higher end luxury style appliances are also including smart features. There's a company out there called Heston, and they actually make a pan with a built-in sensor. And then they have an app that will actually step by step take you through cooking. So let's say you're doing scallops. You preheat your pan, the sensor knows that when the pan hits 380 degrees, you add your scallops, which then lowers the temperature. The induction burner automatically kicks on more heat to bring the temperature up safely and accurately to prescribed temperature. There's a countdown slider. It will say, 3, 2, 1, flip your scallops. Take your scallops out, add your wine. It'll know when the wine's been reduced properly because it's based on the sensor. Sensor talks to the app and the stove, and it's all automatic. It's amazing. It really is. And we're seeing those kind of features more and more in the high-end space, but like everything else, it trickles down to the point where GE is offering that in even their mass premium lines now, which is pretty cool. So, I'm smoking, which I don't want to smoke my Teflon. So when my pan gets too hot, that's easy. I just shake it out. Make sure there's no children or animals or pets around. But I would say, if you want to cook like a pro, and you want to cook like you have a gas stove, but you don't want gas stove in your home, then induction is the best choice. And I think induction is a little bit of oil. I'm using canola oil, I think. I find that I'm going to do my rice in here. I'm just going to toast this. This is pre-cooked, and it froze it overnight so that if I had it in the freezer, it's thawed. But I went ahead and got it nice and dry so that we could toast this. I'm not adding egg or anything like that. I'm going to keep this relatively simple here. Anyways, for those, like I was saying, we have accuracy, we have advanced features, we have more power, and then it acts more like gas. We're going to start seeing more and more features added as it becomes more common. And in Europe, where I think it's something like 85%. I've heard some numbers where that's basically the gold standard there. Everybody has induction. Their cooktops have features that we don't have yet because they're accustomed to having it. Induction's been around since the 70s. It's been around a long time. Okay, we're getting close here. I'm going to start plating up here. I'm really just going to take the temperature off the rice. I'm going to add a touch of sesame oil. You saw I added some salt. I'm going to do some cilantro in here. Why not? Okay. Oh yeah. Turn that off. Okay. I'm going to do a little plate up here, and then we're going to eat, and then take any more questions. I know we're about 12 minutes left. Okay, let's hear them. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep. Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, that's a fantastic question, and thank you for asking it. All of the sizes in home appliances are standard these days. The most common sizes and ranges are 30, which is what most people have, and then if you have a 36, 48, or 60-inch range, we see right now there's induction versions of a full induction of 36. 48 and 60 haven't gone full induction yet, but they are including induction modules. So 2 of the burners will oftentimes be induction. That's more in the luxury space, which is a smaller portion of the market, but it's still important to talk about because everybody has a range in their home. So that would be a range that's, sits on the floor and slides in between cabinets. A cooktop, which we talked about earlier, sets into the island or into the countertop. It might have a separate oven underneath, and the oven might be somewhere else. Those most common sizes are 30 and 36. Those are both available in induction. Some people do have a 24. That might be a 3 burner. They're out there. It's a specialty item, but they are available. We talked about the power requirements. It's important to double check your power requirements. And then ventilation. I wanted to talk about ventilation. When you have a gas burner, it's very important that you have a vent. I have an OTR here, over the range microwave. And this needs to vent to the outdoors as opposed to recirculating air, right? So this one, unfortunately, is still recirculating. I haven't been in this home long enough to have my HVAC guy come out and help me punch a hole in my roof and run the vent, but that's in the works. Nonetheless, you don't want that unburned gas in your home. So it's important to turn your ventilation on. Regardless of what you're cooking, the ventilation manufacturers recommend turning your ventilation on at least 3 minutes in advance of cooking, and I say even 15 minutes in advance. So when you turn your ventilation on early, it forms a column of air. The column of air is getting pushed and pulled out of the house. So if you've been cooking something smoky and smoke alarms start going off, and you turn on your ventilation as fast as high as it'll go, and this thing doesn't keep up, you haven't formed a column of air. So more important than anything, if you're doing a project in your home, think about the ventilation. Ventilation is not the sexiest subject in the world, but it's really important for a host of reasons. And pulling out not only the heat, but also moisture, odor, and grease. You want all of that out of your house when you're cooking. But to answer the question, these are standard size appliances. So if you have a 36-inch cooktop or a 48-inch range top or a 30-inch freestanding stove, there is an equivalency of your appliance in induction on the market for all but the most specialty appliances out there. And if they don't exist yet, they're there. They're just around the corner. We're probably going to be seeing them in 2024 at the latest. All right, I'm going to do a little plate up here. I got my toasted fried rice. And I'm just going to make a little plate. And I got my stir fry. I just want to heat this up just slightly. Just get a little bit more temperature back on it. Oof, oops. Excellent. Were there any other questions? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I find any feature that a manufacturer adds, typically they're proud enough of that feature to add it for a reason. I would say if it's a feature that you get a benefit out of, then by all means, but you may not be able to buy a range without that. I would say that it probably, in induction, we could talk about this, all of the induction inducers, they're about yay big, it's a puck. They're all made by two companies. Two companies in, I believe, overseas makes all of them, with the exception of one company that makes a bow tie style inducer, and the idea being that it will work on different size pots and pans. Again, in my experience, the heat transfer will just work if you're using high quality cookware. What features I do love That is a good feature, but what features I do love and I think work very well are bridge cooking. So that would be where you have two burners, let's say here and here, and it'll actually attach those two burners to the same controller, so you can go up and down, and they'll both activate as one. So I use that if I'm making gravy for Thanksgiving. I set my roasting pan there, or teppanyaki. That works really well, and a lot of them will have an extra inducer that'll kick on. A center burner will oftentimes have a power setting, where it'll actually pull power from all the other burners and send extra energy to that, like turbocharge that extra center burner. That's a really good feature. One of the manufacturers out there has this cool feature. They only do this on induction. So if you have the pot here towards you, it's on high. If you push it back to the middle, it automatically goes to low. And then when you push it all the way back, it goes to extra low. And the idea being that it works like a French style cooktop. That the farther you get away from the front, the lower it gets. That's a cool feature. I was working on recently on an induction cooktop, and it has a auto boil feature. So the cooktop can sense the pot vibrating when the water starts to boil, and then it'll turn itself down from power down to like 7 or 8 and maintain a decent level of heat in the pot until you're ready to add your ingredients. That's a cool feature. So yeah, I would say, having said all that, any feature that you can get value out of, heck yeah. And a lot of these auto features, I don't use them very often, but I find a lot of value in these auto features because they save time, and you know, the engineers work hard on this stuff. Okay. What else we got? Okay. Yep. I would say to her, if she has someone who can help her pull the stove away from the wall, you'll oftentimes see a big either 3 or 4 prong plug, almost the size of my hand. It kind of looks like a periscope. If you see that, you probably have power, 220 power running behind the house. The other thing you can do is go to your panel, open it up, and look to see if any of those switches are labeled range. That would help. Usually it's 2 breakers tied together with a little metal bar. I wouldn't start with an electrician, maybe a handyman. Electricians are expensive because they're highly trained. So I would start maybe with a handyman if this is something that's important to you to go down that journey. I'm not an electrician, so I don't want to give any official advice, but I would start with just doing what you can do as far as pulling the stove away. Look for those telltale signs. Friend, neighbor, handyman, start there. And then if things look good and yeah, we can move forward, then it's going to your appliance center and asking the salesperson. The big questions are, well, will it fit in the existing cavity? And we talked about that. And then the second one is amperage and power requirements. Before you buy anything, don't feel pressured into buying anything until you get the spec sheet. They should be able to print that up for you. Take that spec sheet, and then it's a call to the electrician if you need. I would do all of that before you call the electrician, just to save them time and money and yourself time and money. Yeah. Oh, yeah, that is Aspen. I actually have 2 cats, Aspen and Chip. Chip's very shy. Aspen is a superstar. You can actually see him on my Instagram page, which is Chef with Dogs. Chef with Dogs and Cats. He's a purebred ragdoll. And he looks cuddly, but he's very sharp. It's like petting a cloud until he wants you to stop petting him, and then he gets grouchy fast. He's a typical cat. I love him. He's 12 years old. He is the second greatest cat in the world behind my other cat Awesome. Yeah. Thanks, Facebook. I appreciate that. Yeah. Um, yeah. Check me out on Instagram, Chef with Dogs. I'd love it if you find me there. You're welcome. All right, and we're free. All right, Facebook, pardon me, YouTube Live. All right, well, if you tuned in, this was a rebroadcast of a webinar for City County of Denver, their initiative to help electrify homes. And so I know you couldn't hear the webinar, but I thought, let me throw this up here just for fun, just so that I can get a little bit of contact. I should have done the volume a little different, the audio, but I'll figure that out next time. Anyways, I hope if you tuned in and got to see some cooking, I hope you enjoyed it. And I hope you have a great night, and I hope that you have a great dinner. Okay.